Welcome to the FCICA product webinar series. Thank you for joining us. Excuse me. We are pleased to have Jim Muggleton, UZIN Classic Product Manager, and Petras Kruopys, Head of R&D and QC, UZIN Utz North America, with us today presenting Mitigation, Preparation, Prime, and Patch. Jim has 22 years experience in the commercial floor industry and previously owned a flooring distribution company in the UK. He is responsible for the UZIN Classic Range products from inception and the life cycle. He has daily interaction with the R&D team at UZIN Utz North America manufacturing facility in Dover, Delaware. Petras has a background in chemistry and 10 years experience in the development of products for the floor covering industry. He is responsible for the development and testing of UZIN products and is the ASTM representative, and also has daily interaction with technical sales at the UZIN Utz North America manufacturing facility. Welcome, Jim and Petras. We're excited to have you. I'm going to turn the controls over to you.
Thank you, Christine. Hopefully everybody can hear me there. It's gone very quiet. Welcome to everybody. Thank you again to Christine and to Billy. Much appreciate that nice introduction. I think you've covered so much of it there, quite honestly, Christine. The first presentation slide for today, guys and girls, is just that. I am Jim Muggleton. I am responsible for the UZIN Classic Product Range. Don't let the accent fool you. I am resident of Colorado, US, Denver, Colorado. 22 years experience in the flooring industry, as Christine just mentioned there, having previously owned my own flooring distribution company in the United Kingdom. My responsibilities are, as Christine said there, very much the management 101 of all things UZIN Classic. We have two divisions there for the UZIN systems. One is Classic, and one is tile and stone installation systems that my friend Dave is responsible for. I have daily interaction with the colleague who I'm going to introduce in the next slide momentarily, which is Mr. Petras Kruopys, who is our head of R&D production out of the facility in Dover, Delaware. Petras has 10 years experience in the development of products for the floor covering industry. Petras is our 101 science man at the coalface, chipping away for all new products that we look to put in all things innovation to you, our customer base. Petras is responsible for not only the UZIN Classic range, but also for the tile and stone installation product development of powder production there in our manufacturing facility in Dover. Petras is also our ASTM representative for UZIN Utz North America, of which UZIN is a brand. So today, guys, I'd like to start the presentation off with the first of two new innovative products in the UZIN Classic product range, which is our UZIN PE 360 Plus Primer. The product is shown on the screen there in front of you in its packaging formats. A 1 gallon cubit to the left-hand side, which is a fully recyclable cardboard container with a plastic bladder holds the product inside. And on the right-hand side is our 2.6 gallon fully recyclable plastic container made of post-consumer recyclable content. So an introduction, first of all, of the two products. And I want to do justice to each of these, but we've looked to pick out certain key points so that you guys can read the introduction notes on the screen there for yourselves. What have we got here first and foremost? We have an absorbent interior use, fully porous suitable substrate primer in PE 360 Plus. Acrylic-based technology, very similar to our PE 260 product. However, the PE 260 primer from UZIN is actually a dilutable product. This product, we've done the hard work for you. It's a fully diluted product. You don't add any water whatsoever to the material itself, and it is particularly suited for going over the top of highly porous absorbent substrates. For example, gypsum concrete substrates or lightweight concrete substrates. But 101 concrete, most applied substrate finish, that's where you're going to use this primer primarily. So interior use only. Mentioned about the conditions for a pre-diluted product. We've already, I say, done the homework there behind the scenes. Because it's already a pre-diluted product, it's very much a fast-track construction system versus the PE 260 product that we require you to dilute as much as 3 parts water to 1 part primer for highly absorbent substrates. With this particular product, you literally just have to shake the bottle or shake the cubit, weight the product, pour it out into a suitable container, and then you have the choice of either roller applying the material down on the substrate, or this product can actually be put into a pump sprayer, so a regular garden pump sprayer, and applied down on the floor in that manner and subsequently back rolled into place to make sure you've got a nice even covering. That fast track allowance of having a sprayable finish is particularly aimed at saving you guys and indeed the installers more time on the job site. Heavy wear use in residential and commercial locations. By that, we will always look to put a covering over the top of this. It is just a primer product to aid in the adhesion of patching compounds or leveling compounds that come thereafter from the range of UZIN. This key feature for today, and as Christine mentioned there in the highlight topic, for moisture mitigation 101 in primers, in patching compounds, and the NC890 HydroPatch, both products are suitable for use over substrates displaying up to 100% relative humidity and an alkalinity reading of up to pH number 14. We can also coat over the top of radiant floor heating systems, by that for hydronic or radionic for water or wire in the substrate beneath. Key features and benefits for the product. Well, I mentioned about that fast track application, the fact that we can pump spray apply this material onto the floor. It's extremely fast drying. So not only is the application fast by a pump sprayer or even by a roller application, but that extremely fast dry formula enables you to get on the floor faster, be it with a patching compound, be it with a leveling compound from UZIN thereafter. It's a solvent-free material, therefore it's extremely environmentally friendly, not only in its packaging format there as well, that I say is fully recyclable in either format, be it the box or the bottle. We meet the criteria there for all things California Section 01350. We are LEED compliant with this particular product, version 4. We have a contributing product in the material in front of you. Low VOC, less than 10 grams per litre. Hopefully that screen shows a little bit larger at your end than it does mine, but you can see as a benchmark between both products, you'll see the left-hand side. Hopefully many of you in the audience today will be familiar with PE260 primer. That I mentioned is that dilutable material, hence in the chart to the left-hand side, you'll see dilution ratios, either using the product undiluted or diluting down as much as 1:1, 2:1, or even 3 parts water, 1 part primer. For the product on the right-hand side, you'll notice for a 1 gallon container, we get a significant yield of up to 600 square feet per gallon. 2.6 gallons will cover you approximately 1,600 square feet. Now, one key characteristic that I must mention there as well, guys and girls, is that obviously key parameters there, the common sense parameters of surface porosity are going to affect the dry time and in fact the coverage there as well. Drying time on this product is between 30 to 60 minutes. I mentioned that previously. Extremely fast application allows you guys to get on the floor that little bit quicker there as well. For a color differentiator between the two different products, PE260, for those of you that are familiar with the material, is a white product in colorway when it tips out of the bottle. It actually goes to more of a transparent film thereafter. With this particular product for PE360 Plus to the right-hand side of the screen there, that is a product that actually pours out of the pail in a mid-blue colorway. We've put that in there deliberately to aid in the application as a visual determination as to where the product has been applied on the floor. Therefore, it saves you going over particular areas that you may have done in the first pass. And again, that aids the time-saving advantage there as well. Further technical data, I mentioned about the pump spray application. Why is that particularly important? Well, the pump spray application is a benefit as well to our PE260 product, to the sister product of 360 Plus. However, with the 260 product, the only dilution really that we generally recommend from a pump sprayer is a 3:1 dilution of PE260. I say the 360 is already pre-diluted. You never add water to the finish whatsoever. When going over the top of highly absorbent substrates, I mentioned about gypsum concrete or lightweight concrete on the substrate beneath, or extremely abraded, shot blasted, very porous substrates that are really going to suck the material down, we can look to either apply the material by the UZIN nylon roller, which is a 3/8 nap finish, or by a low pressure garden sprayer. Approximate dry time when going over such substrates is going to be within around about 30 minutes. That sprayer application must be backrolled immediately with the UZIN nylon roller. So it's not a case of pick one or the other. It's very much that we have to use both products or both tools in tandem. The packaging on the 360 Plus, you'll see it there in front of you folks on the bottom right hand side of the screen. Very much the same as we've got with the 260 packaging. Pallet quantity of the 1 gallon cubit, that's the little cardboard box, is 128 units, and I've given you the item number there as well. For the pallet quantity of the plastic bottles of the 2.6 gallon bottle, we get 60 pails per pallet, per Euro pallet in the 2.6 gallon bottle. Just at the bottom left-hand side of the screen, you'll notice that there's a visible differentiator between the dark gray finish of the bottle in the bottom left-hand side of the screen for the PE260 product. I have to state at this point in particular, the PE360 Plus bottles that you will be receiving as of this moment, for those of you that are currently using it, are of that same dark gray format. That dark gray format is deliberate because the products themselves, the bottles themselves, should I say, are made of post-consumer recyclable content. So just as we've got a carton of milk, a jug of milk from the grocery store, once that's been cleaned and sent back for recycling, it's often that content from such materials that go into the packaging of the new 360 Plus as well as the PE260 containers. So look for those new dark finish format containers out in the marketplace. To the middle of the screen, you'll see the cubit boxes. For those of you that purchase the cubit in the 1 gallon fully recyclable, you'll see how those are stacked on the Euro pallet container there as well. Now that in particular, for that product for 360 Plus, segues terrifically to what I would refer to as another sister product in our brand new innovation, second innovation for you guys and girls today, which is NC890 HydroPatch. This is our 100% moisture tolerant skin patch ramping compound. For those of you that are already familiar with and purchasing, thank you very much. For those of you that are buying our 886 or our 888 products, those two products will remain in the line. However, 886 and 888, we don't have that allowance for moisture tolerance. With this particular material, we go moisture tolerant up to 100% RH. With the 886 and the 888, we have an 85 relative humidity threshold. There is no threshold with NC890 HydroPatch. This product has been specifically formulated primarily for use beneath UZIN sister component products, be it our single component polyurethane primer, mitigation material, surface strengthener, 3 products in one if you like, with our PE414 turbo product. We also have this product as a main use material underneath our 100% RH, no alkalinity limit, 2-component epoxy, 100% solids, PE460, which is a 2-component epoxy mitigation material. Primarily because of that 100% allowance on the PE460, 100% allowance on the HydroPatch, 100% as I mentioned on the 360 Plus, we can use all 3 products in unison. NC890 HydroPatch, to give you more of an introduction, folks, I mentioned very similar to the 886 and to the 888 that you're already familiar with. This product follows a similar CI in regard to the packaging format. It's a 10-pound bag packaging format. You can expect to find the same quantity, and we'll run through the packaging towards the end of the presentation. Same 4 foil bags. Foil, why foil? It's sealed for freshness there at the end of the day versus more of a plastic or a paper finish. You will find 4 of these 10-pound bags to a cardboard carton. And the new distinguishing packaging in a white carton box for NC890. For those of you that are already purchasing the 890 product, because we've been out now for some little time, you'll notice that packaging, that white packaging, will be transferred across for 886 and 888 there as well. 890 varies from the PE360 as a powder product versus a liquid versus an acrylic for the 360 Plus primer. However, the 890 can be used in exterior use applications as well as interior. The PE360 Plus product is only for interior use. Now, for many of you familiar with systems approach from UZIN, you'll say that, okay, well, why make primers then at the end of the day, Jim? Quite honestly with that, folks, we have primers in the system because we always look to give a system approach to our customers. We sell primers for a reason in the dear old fable of if in doubt, prime it out. This is a product, however, with 890 HydroPatch that can be used in advance of flooring application without the need to prime. Priming of substrates is always recommended. So for interior applications, particularly where high mitigation circumstances are prevalent, you can use the PE 360 Plus beneath the 890. I recommend the PE 360 Plus in such circumstances because even though we will have a very good surface finish without priming, we obviously have different contractors out there with regard to conditions of extreme absorbent, mid-absorbent, low absorbency substrates. Where we have an extremely absorbent substrate and we don't choose to prime, we will often look to see a slight finish of, say, pinholing in the surface or potential for pinholing with 890. If you use the 360 Plus in interior mitigation circumstances beneath 890, you will look to minimize the potential for those pinholes appearing. So interior exterior use beneath UZIN moisture mitigation products, be it 414 or PE 460. Use beneath moisture-resistant adhesives and floor coverings. Now, this in particular, I really want to draw your attention to, folks. Both products that I'm calling out here today, they are not moisture barriers. And that really needs to be highlighted by a triple exclamation mark. They are not moisture barriers. They are moisture tolerant. So let's say, for example, where we have a concrete substrate that has a reading of in situ pros by 2170, we have a 95% RH reading. You could choose to use over that concrete PE 360 Plus primer, NC 890 HydroPatch over the top. However, if the floor covering that is to be applied down over the top of that system is only suitable for use up to 85% relative humidity, then you must proceed no further. Already the homework, the indication from the slab would have given you that direction to say, well, hold tight. We've got a 95% reading. We know that the 360 will tolerate that. We know that the 890 will tolerate that, but the floor covering won't tolerate that. In that particular circumstance, we would direct you to a fourth component in that sandwich, which would obviously be our PE 460 mitigation, or in fact, a two-coat application of 414 will tolerate up to 95% relative humidity. I mentioned about the priming 101 with 360 Plus previously. One substrate that must always be primed in advance of, let's say, an 890 HydroPatch installation, or indeed 886 or 888, is gypsum concrete. Gypsum concrete, when in contact with Portland cement or calcium aluminate cements there, they don't tend to like one another. So putting that priming coat agent in between maintains that we've got that adhesion. We must always call out for that use of a primer. In this case, I'm going to call that PE 360 Plus when coating over the top of gypsum concrete subfloors. Covering plywood, oriented strand board there, American Plywood Association rated. Again, just as the PE 360 Plus, we have a product here that can go over, be it hydronic or electric, so water or wire, underfloor heating systems. Over new or old cement leveling compounds, sure, absolutely. But remember this, folks, we are only as good as the substrate that we go over. So if there is an indication of loose or friable material on the floor in advance, then obviously we need to remove that in advance of priming, or indeed going direct over the top with the 890 HydroPatch. We must have no adhesive residues on the concrete subfloor in advance of an NC 890 HydroPatch application when it's to be used for moisture mitigation purposes or moisture tolerance prior to taking a moisture tolerant floor covering or adhesive over the top of that. That's really is imperative there for you folks to know. There can be no adhesive residues in the case of a moisture mitigation system application there as well. For the use beneath moisture resistant adhesives and floor coverings, I draw your attention to the bottom red rectangle on the screen in front of you there, where we say, depending on floor covering and adhesive manufacturers' allowances, it's just as I called out there before, folks. It's great that we've got this new technology coming into the market from so many adhesives, high moisture tolerant adhesives that go to 90, 95, 99, but always check in the system there as to run to point Z in the alphabet as to what is the final component that's going to go down on the floor. And we know that that is generally going to be a covering or a coating. And in those cases, you really have to check with that floor covering manufacturer in advance to say, okay, what is your limit to the system? Because it's generally that floor covering that will decide the makeup of the systems that come beneath. Assistant components, PE360+, UZIN NC 890 HydroPatch, throughout the board for all UZIN products. Obviously, when you use any of our UZIN products, we give you our UUNA UZIN backed warranty there as well. And that information is available to download via our website. Other key features and benefits of the material itself. Well, 101, folks, we say the clue's in the name, HydroPatch. This is an advanced moisture-resistant technology. Remember, not a barrier, moisture-resistant. It will allow for free passage of high moisture vapor through both products, be it 360 or the 890. Coverings over the top of an NC 890 application, particularly put down as a skim coat, can be covered in as little as 30 minutes. I mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we have a product here that can be used as a skim coat, a patching compound. It can also be used as a ramping product there as well. When using this product to ramp, the depth allowance must not exceed a ½ inch deep. One question that I've been asked previously, be it from my own colleagues, be it from customers out in the field about this new product is, okay, if we have a spall or a pop out at a concrete floor that exceeds, let's say, a ½ inch deep, can we fill that localized area using the NC 890 HydroPatch? Absolutely you can. In the example of, say, let's say a 1 inch depth spall that we need to fill into the concrete substrate itself, we can use 890, no issue whatsoever, but do be advised on that, folks, that it's going to take longer to dry. The deeper you go with the product, the longer the wait time prior to coating over the top. As an application of moisture vapor mitigation over the top of NC 890, we require minimum 2 hours prior to the application of moisture vapor mitigation over the face of the 890 product. Variable water range, just one additional extra benefit that we put there for really all of our powder products. Every UZIN product out there, this side of the Atlantic, has for all the powder products, they have a water range. And this is huge, not only for the guy on the job site there as well. He or she in application, generally used to, say, either one of our other patching compounds or similar manufactured products on the marketplace there, will generally have that muscle memory or that feel beneath the trowel when applying a patching compound similar to NC 890. To accommodate for that muscle memory, that feel, glide beneath the trowel, we give you that water range. For this particular product, we have a water range of 1.75 to 1.85 quarts. You can dial the material back. You can choose to have a little bit thicker under the trowel, or we can go to the top end of the water range, and we can choose to have a little bit more of a glidable material over the substrate there as well. So again, it's more in accommodation for the installer, he or she out there in the field. In either application, be it a high water, be it a low water range, so long as you work within that water range and don't deviate from that to put less water or more water, you will find in either circumstance that you get an extremely smooth surface finish. That smooth surface finish aids for the application of UZIN adhesives thereafter. We mentioned about the no primer required. Guys, I think hopefully we're all common sense on this call today there as well. We all know the circumstances, generally from a visual indication as to when we need to prime, when we don't need to prime. Per ASTM F3191 for the water droplet test, checking that absorbency in advance. I always recommend, and I say it there, if in doubt, prime it out. PE360+, sister product to NC 890, hence why we're talking about both products today, because they segue so well between one and the other. Just as the PE360+, we have lead V4 contributing product in the NC 890 HydroPatch. I'd be doing a disservice to the other two patches if I didn't call those out at this particular point. One thing that we've looked to do since early 2020 is we have categorized our materials in a slightly different manner. We now have 3 key categories for the UZIN Classic range. Those are Premium, Premium Plus, and Premium Pro. And for this, we've termed it our Performance Pyramid. Now, with every one of those products, for those of you that are already familiar with the 886 or the 888, you'll know that we have got, just as I called out there before, about a variable water range, adjustable consistency. We have that superior smooth surface, generally with or without priming in advance. We have that fast dry for any of the three products in front of you today. We have that versatility for use over porous and non-porous substrates. Now, extra key point there as well with the NC 890, we now have a patching compound that is suitable for use up to 100% relative humidity. Residential commercial applications, absolutely fine in the installation of the NC 890 HydroPatch. I mentioned there before, we talked about the limited 10-year warranty through UZIN Utz North America, of which UZIN is a brand. We supply that 10-year warranty for all UZIN products. The NC 890 actually joins our product NC 172 bi-turbo and NC 112 turbo, our gypsum, fast-dry gypsum underlayment, in the premium pro category of the performance pyramid. So it's at the top tier of the pyramid, and it's at the top. Why, guys? Because it's got so many inherent features and benefits, including that extra benefit at the end of the day of 100% moisture tolerance. No limit there, as I mentioned before, on alkalinity. So let's talk about the other key benefits to you or to your installers out there in the field. We mentioned about the format in a 10-pound bag, foiled for freshness. We have a 9-month storage on this particular product, 9-month minimum storage. Do we know that the products will work thereafter? Absolutely, we know that they'll work after 9 months. The only thing that generally will happen with a lot of polymer-based materials is that we will notice a slight drawdown in the dry time after that 9 months. So whereas we state on the technical data in front of you there, folks, a working time of 10 to 15 minutes, after 9 months, you might well find that that is exceeded, that you will look to have a more open window on a working time. It could be that you'll have 20 to 30 minutes working time on the product. With that give, you also get a take. And the take back is after 9 months, you'll probably notice a slight slowing down on the dry time for the product. So we do encourage you to use the materials within that 9 months. 10-pound packaging, very similar, I mentioned there, to the 886 and the 888. 4 bags to a box carton. VOC, for VOC, it's a powder product. There is 0 calculated for this particular material. Minimum working temperature at floor level, 50 Fahrenheit. And again, our ideal, perfect world scenario, ideal working temperature in application between 60 to 77 Fahrenheit. Called out about the working time momentarily there. 10 to 15 minutes working time on the material, ready as a skim coat application for receiving floor coverings in as little as 30 minutes. Now that 30 minutes to 2 hours over absorbent substrates as a skim coat to a ½ inch depth. So if you go in at, say, a ½ inch depth, that's where we've given that 2 hour suggested window. The deeper you go, the longer the product is going to take to dry. Ready for receiving extremely moisture sensitive materials such as wood or cork or rubber coverings in as little as 16 hours. Compressive strength. You'll see there's 2 values here, folks, and my colleague Petras is going to elaborate on this in a moment or two's time, so we'll probably revert back to this slide if needs be. But you will notice 2 strengths there. We have 2 compressive strengths, 1 measurement in air and 1 measurement where the product was actually submerged in underwater storage for 28 days, 28 days in either scenario. And my colleague Petras is going to elaborate on that in a moment or two's time as well. Coverage on the product, we have extremely good coverage on the material itself. We have a very low water range. I mentioned that before about the 1.75 to 1.85 quarts. The product has tremendous water retention. It holds its water. Therefore, it doesn't look to leach that water out in the case of an application over a porous substrate. It retains that water. Hence, that water retention enables the material to glide that little bit further. And we've evaluated there as a skim coat application anywhere between 300 to 350 square feet per 10-pound bag. Now, unlike our 886 and 888 products, where we will allow you to mix part bag quantities and we give you a ratio for that to say 2 parts powder to 1 part water, we can't use that ratio in this particular circumstance for the NC 890 HydroPatch. We can't do that because we have a lower water to powder ratio. Therefore, on the product data sheet, as well as the packaging, we've also given you the water amount there for a half bag mix. And that's just shown at the top of the presentation slide in front of you. So we can accommodate for that half bag mix, splitting the bag in half. And again, it's then very easy math. If you choose to mix just a quarter bag of powder, you can again just divide those figures and you're off to the races. Packaging on the product, again, we mentioned about the 886 and the 888. 40 cartons, 40 of the cardboard cartons that are shown in the bottom left-hand corner there, and as well I've done a 2D layout as well so you can see the new format packaging. We've switched away from the brown carton packaging that we've had previously for 886 and 888, and those are just being cycled through at the moment to this new white packaging format. So you'll see out there in the field, folks, before too long, you'll see all three patching compounds for 886, for 888 and 890 in this new white carton format. The white boxes I particularly like because we've got the foil bagged product there in the NC 890 as well as 888, 886. Having that carton on the back of the truck just enables for reduction in slip and slide and potential damage to the bags themselves. It's also easier in handling for being able to remove the box from the back of the truck and take it off the job site itself. They also do wonderfully there as well, folks, for collecting trash off the job site. If you choose to have an empty box on site, fill it with the trash, and then take it back to the store and drop it in the dumpster on site or off site there as well. So 160 bags is the equation of 40 cartons to a pallet. For the marketing on this particular product, that's shown in front of you there. My colleagues for Mackenzie, for Jane, and for Josh have very kindly produced this lovely marketing piece. And really, it states exactly what we've said in today's presentation for both of these products there, is that we are not afraid of the deep end. By that, we have two products that we've just highlighted there: moisture tolerant up to 100% RH, alkalinity top tolerance up to the top of the chart of a pH alkalinity number of 14. So no limitations on moisture vapor. We meet the American ASTM standards there for F710 and F3010. And F3010 is going to be a greater elaboration on that from my colleague Petras momentarily. We mentioned about the exceptional coverage and the workability. We mentioned even though we've got that reduced water amount in this particular product for 890, that it will still glide out, very similar to that under trial feel as you've experienced previously in your kind purchase of 886 and 888. So to that point, I'm actually going to pass across to my colleague Petras, who is going to give a greater elaboration on all things on the production of this material. This was largely founded as the brainchild of my colleague Petras, who's the head of R&D production out of our Dover, Delaware facility, where we manufacture all of our dry mortar powder materials. Petras, if I may, I'm going to pass the floor across to you, sir.
Thank you, Jim. First of all, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Okay,
thanks. So I would just like to address the term moisture resistance and how it applies to a cementitious patch. This term it's not defined in our industry yet for patches especially. It is open for interpretation, so I would like to share how we UZIN think what moisture resistance is and how we defined it as part of this project. The project was to develop a moisture-resistant compound, and it with one target, just to ensure that the moisture will not have any detrimental effect on the patch over a long term. And what can happen to a patch when it's subjected to high amounts of moisture? Well, one thing about the patch is its compressive strength. It can let's say, stop developing the compressive strength. It can also start losing compressive strength, and we didn't want any of those things to happen. And also, another important thing about patch is its ability to bond well, develop bond strength, and again, not lose it when it's subjected to moisture. So we listed every relevant property that we thought might happen to this patch, and we elected to test the product not only in elevated moisture but simply underwater, because that's easy to control and it ensures the maximum exposure to moisture. And that was the project. We spent over 2 years developing the formulation, and that led to some breakthroughs in choice of specialty cements and polymers and other additives that would help the patch to retain its integrity underwater. It does not fall apart. It does not lose compressive strength. It actually builds it. And we're proud to say now that we have a formulation that meets the ASTM standards, which are standard practices for installing resilient floor coverings and also installing the moisture mitigation systems. And those are respectively the F710 and F3010. And what those standard practices call for is that the substrate is over 3,000 psi at 28 days. That's the requirement. And our product, NC890 HydroPatch, reaches over 3,000 psi at 28 days and keeps slowly building strength. We have not seen a downward trend. It just keeps getting stronger. The line flatlines over long term. And about the bond strength, the F3010, which is for covering or installing moisture mitigation using two-component epoxy systems. That standard is also calling for at least of 200 psi of pull-off strength of the substrate. And we can say also that this patch easily exceeds 200 psi of pull-off strength or direct tensile bond strength, and also keeps the strength high. It does not deteriorate over time. And of course, the patch also delivers, as usual, great workability and feel under the trowel. It's also somewhat easier to sand off with a sandpaper or those rotating machines. So in combination, I think it's a great patching product with the properties that you're used to when installing NC888 or NC886, with an additional technology that ensures good compressive strength and bond strength when exposing the patch to the moisture. And that's it from my side. If there are any questions to that topic, I'll be glad to answer.
Petras, thank you. I think at this particular point, as Petras just mentioned there, Christine, we're at a point now where we would like to field questions from the audience participants there as well, please.
Thank you so much, Jim and Petras. So if the audience has any questions or comments, please submit them in the Q&A box on the left side of your screen. We'll wait a few moments for people to enter in their questions. In the meantime, we do have one question here. We have several, actually. The first question is, how is coverage of the 890 compared to the 886 and the 888? Also, how is the feel compared to the other two patches as well?
So I'm going to answer that if I may on this, Petras. So for coverage on this particular material, you will find that we are looking to get very similar coverage rates to those of the 886 and the 888 prior. One thing that I will call out in particular with coverage, I said it before there as well, guys, porosity, profile, the conditions on the job site there for temperature control there as well, are all going to play a key role in the performance or the coverage per square foot of the materials themselves. The second part of that question, I'm so sorry, Christine, could you just repeat that again, the second part?
Sure. The second part was, how is the feel compared to the other two patches as well?
So with that water range, that variance in water range, be it for 886, 888, or even the 890, you have the condition under the trowel to be able to determine so much of that feel, either at the top end of the water range or the base end of the water range. I personally have found that this particular material glides very similarly to the 888 product. Very similar feel between all three patches, quite honestly. But the consistency, the very fine, buttery consistency of the 890, I find to be, out of the three materials, the easiest push product out of all three products underneath the trowel.
Next question is, Are you able to trowel NC 890 over all the same substrates, subfloors, as you can with the 886 or the 888? Example, can you trowel NC 890 over VCT, LVT, etc.?
So for going over all of those other finishes, as we mentioned there as well, certainly we've got a product here with 890 that will counter for all of those extremes. One thing in particular, when it comes down to, let's say, a refurbishment condition where we've got existing vinyl composite tiles, VCT tiles on the floor, they've got to be free from wax agents. They've got to be free from cleaning agents there as well. If there is the potential for high shine on the floor, by that where we think we've got a determination of a potential contaminant underneath the floor there as well, we need that to be removed. We want to have that clean surface finish in the event of either a non-surface or non-porous, should I say, or a porous suitable substrate. But yes, we've got a product in this condition that can go in both circumstances similarly.
Next question, is the PE 360 Plus primer required to be used beneath the UZIN NC 890 HydroPatch?
It is not on that, Christine, to that end. This material is, we don't put a stipulation there to say, look, it's a direct requirement to use the PE 360 underneath the 890. What we will highlight, however, in this particular circumstance is that it will aid the appearance of the material itself. It will look to minimize the potential for pinholing, let's say over a highly absorbent concrete subfloor. So by use of PE 360, you will look to minimize the potential for those pinholes appearing.
Next question, can the UZIN NC 890 HydroPatch be used to fill holes deeper than a ½ inch?
Yes, to that end, Christine, we mentioned that previously in the presentation there, just as a recap. Absolutely. Although we say that this product can go down as a true skin finish on the floor, pulled very tightly, and then it can go up to a ½ inch as published on the data sheet and the packaging itself. Yeah, for localized spalls or pop-outs on a concrete floor, for example, we can look to cover those, fill those in with the 890 HydroPatch, even if they go in advance of a ½ inch deep. Biggest thing as a key characteristic there is it's going to take longer for those areas to dry versus what we call out there as a ½ inch, generally taking around about 2 hours for a ½ inch depth to dry on the floor.
Next question, can I use UZIN NC 890 HydroPatch for my day-to-day needs when skim, patching, and ramping?
Yeah, absolutely. With that, Christine, you have here, quite honestly, you have a 3-in-1 product, very similar to the feel as you mentioned on the 886 and the 888 there as well. However, the key differentiator between 890 is that you have that built-in security, that added comfort, knowing that you have a product here that can go to the top of the alkalinity and the top of the RH chart up to 100% relative humidity. I say it's 85% relative humidity cutoff with the 886 and the 888. So many of our customers out there in the field that are familiar with the feel under the trowel, with the adhesion of all three products for that polymer content there as well, be it 886 or 888 or 890. Quite honestly, we have so many of the audience for our customers out there in the field that will generally choose one over the other. They will often choose that on feel. For that, I say that muscle memory or that condition for what they felt with previous manufacturers' materials under the trowel. So they'll generally look to mirror that in a product. For that, we've got three products of choice there at the end of the day. However, NC 888, we have that additional allowance of being able to take that material up to 1 inch depth for ramping purposes. The 886 and the 890, we have a ½ inch depth allowance there as well. But yes, day-to-day applications, Christine, sure.
Next question, is NC 890 safe to use on exterior work?
Absolutely. For exterior applications of NC 890, we couldn't look to use the PE 360 Plus. For those circumstances, NC 890 must be bonded direct to the concrete substrate. or indeed if we have a friable exterior substrate, we can look to fortify, strengthen that in the application of, say, 414 or PE 460 with, say, a grip bind finish, a sand broadcaster refusal to create a really good mechanical key over extremely friable or loose substrates on the exterior. For exterior applications, PE 360 must not be used. Therefore, NC 890 SA can be used as a standalone product, or it can be used as a system component with one of our mitigation or reinforcement, substrate reinforcement strengthening materials in 414 or 460.
Next question, what is the coverage rate of the PE 360?
On the PE 360, for a 1 gallon container, you're going to get approximately 600 square feet. For a 2.6 gallon container, you get approximately 1,000 plus, so you get 1,600 square feet. So 600 per gallon, 1,600 per 2.6 gallon container. Again, we've called it out there before, guys. Porosity of the slab, the ambient conditions on the job site, the profile of the floor itself, those are all going to be drivers, not only on the dry tie, but also on the coverage of the product.
Next question, how do I go about mixing part quantities of NC 890?
It really is a great question there, Christine. We mentioned that previously in the presentation. We talked about a full 10-pound bag mix where you would look to mix 1.75 to 1.85 quarts. We also give a ratio on the bag packaging as well as the product data sheet to be able to mix 5 pounds, half the 10-pound bag amount there as well. By giving those ratios for the 5-pound mix, it's very easy for the installer to dial it back and say, okay, if I've got this water ratio for a 5-pound mix, if I want to mix a quarter bag, I just divide those figures in half and away I go. So we've put the math on the paperwork there as well so that everybody can be securing the knowledge as to what the correct water ratio to powder should be.
Okay, and the final question that I have here is, do I have to abrade prior to application of PE 460 over NC 890?
No, you do not, Christine, with that. And this is a huge benefit out there in the field. So long as you mix within the water range of the product itself, for a 10-pound mix, I mentioned it there, 1.75 to 1.85 quarts, you do not need to abrade the cured surface of the NC 890 prior to a PE 460 installation. PE 460 has such a low viscosity of the material, high viscosity of the material itself. It's extremely thin, therefore it penetrates very easily. So there is not the need to abrade the surface of the NC 890 HydroPatch in advance of, let's say, a 414 or even a 460 application over the top surface. That is a tremendous time saving there as well. Our mantra at UZIN is productivity is our product. We look to pass that productivity across to our customers. So yet another great example of where we can look to save you time and therein money on the job site.
Okay, I think that was the last of the questions. So if there aren't any more questions, then on behalf of FCICA, thank you to Jim and Petras for presenting today's webinar, Mitigation, Preparation, Prime, and Patch. Sim, you may now navigate to the Submit Credit tab to receive credit. Please note that you must be signed into the educational platform for this feature to work. If you have any issues, please let us know. So that is the conclusion of the webinar. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much, Jim and Petras.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, audience members.